Snow across Scotland, gale force winds, temperatures dropping to -15. That is what we're really looking at. I've examined the latest models from the Met Office and the ECMWF, and what we're already seeing develop over the next 48 hours is a classic British meteorological standoff. To our east, over the continent, there's a block of cold, stagnant air. To our west, the Atlantic is trying its best to push in milder, wetter systems. The result is a textbook divided forecast. If you're re-waking up this Sunday morning wondering what happened to proper winter weather, well, it depends entirely on where you are. Right now, the contrast across the country couldn't be more stark. The Scottish Highlands saw temperatures drop to around 3 degrees Celsius this morning. That is about 37 Fahrenheit. There's a frost on the grass in the glens, and that sharp bite in the air that tells you winter hasn't forgotten about the far north. Meanwhile, down in Plymouth and Southampton, that south-westerly airflow is doing its job. Temperatures starting the day as high as 8 or 9 degrees. That is 46 to 48 Fahrenheit. Remarkably mild for mid-January. But don't let those numbers fool you. With the wind and the rain in the west, it won't feel particularly warm at all. Let me break down what's happening meteorologically, because this is important for understanding why the next 2 days are going to play out the way they are. We have high pressure sat over Scandinavia. That blocking any Atlantic systems from moving through quickly. At the same time, we have low pressure out in the Atlantic trying to push eastwards. The two are locked in battle, and we are caught in the middle. This creates what the Met Office calls a split flow pattern. Cold, dry air to the east, mild, wet air to the west, and precious little mixing between the two. The isobars are tightly packed over the Irish Sea, which tells us wind speeds are going to be significant. We're re-looking at gusts of 40 to 50 miles per hour across Western Scotland and Wales today. That's enough to make walking difficult in exposed areas, enough to bring down small branches. If you are planning a coastal walk in Aberystwyth or along the Western Isles, I'd reconsider. Now, for those of you in East Anglia, the East Midlands, or Kent, the story this morning is fog. Proper fog. The sort that reduces visibility to less than 100 metres in places. This isn't just a light mist. In some low-lying vales and near the estuaries, we are talking about what old-timers used to call a pea super. The air is stagnant there. The moisture has nowhere to go. If you are driving on the A14, the M11, or country lanes in Lincolnshire, you need to take extra care. Fog lights will be necessary until late morning at least. This fog is what we call radiation fog. On a clear, calm night, the ground loses heat rapidly. The air just above the ground cools to its dew point. Moisture condenses, visibility drops. In January, the sun is simply too weak to burn it off quickly. It may lift into low stratus cloud, leaving a gloomy grey canopy overhead for much of the day. We often call this anticyclonic gloom. It's dry mostly, but you want to see much blue sky. For Londoners, Sunday morning looks like a grey start. The capital tends to hold on to its heat thanks to the urban heat island effect, so you want to be freezing. Temperatures around 7 degrees, but it will be damp, that lingering threat of mist coming off the Thames. The pavement cafes might be a bit optimistic this morning. Contrast that with the west. If you are waking up in Cornwall, Devon, Cardiff, or up towards Glasgow, the air feels different. It's fresher, certainly, but it's wet. We have rain pushing in from the Irish Sea. It started as drizzle in the early hours, but it's likely organising into heavier showers as people sit down for breakfast. This is frontal rain. A weak, warm front is draped across the country, and it is bringing moisture from the Atlantic. Nothing severe, but persistent. The sort of rain that gets through to your skin if you were out in it for more than 10 minutes. As we move into Sunday afternoon, how does the picture evolve? Well, that stubborn fog in the east, places like Norwich, Ipswich, and down towards Dover, will struggle to lift. It may thin a bit, but don't expect it to clear completely. You're looking at overcast skies and that same grey ceiling for much of the day. Temperature-wise, you will barely climb above 4 degrees in Yorkshire if the fog persists. It will feel raw, not the sort of day for outdoor chores. Over in the west, Wales, the Lake District, and Western Scotland, the rain will become more showery. You might get lucky. There could be breaks in the cloud. If you're on the coast, perhaps near Blackpool or along the Pembrokeshire coastline, you might catch a glimpse of the sun in the afternoon. But these sunny intervals will be fleeting, sandwiched between showers that could be quite sudden. 1 minute you are in sunshine, the next you reaching for the umbrella. The hot spots, if we can call them that, will be in the south. London and the home counties could reach 10 or 11 degrees Celsius. That's 50 to 52 Fahrenheit, actually a touch above average for mid-January. But further north, it tells a different story. Edinburgh and Newcastle will struggle to get past 5 or 6 degrees. Glasgow might manage 7, but with the wind chill from those westerly gusts, it will feel closer to freezing. For the gardeners listening, if you were planning to get out and perhaps prune the roses or tidy the borders, the west is probably a write-off due to the wet soil. The east is dry, but you'll need your thickest jumper. Perfect weather, really, for staying indoors with a Sunday roast and postponing the outdoor chores for another week. Now, let's talk about Monday the 19th. This is where things start to shift a bit. The general theme for Monday is variability. We re-expecting the cloud cover to break up more than on Sunday. This means we'll see sunny spells developing, particularly in the northwest and Northern Ireland by the afternoon. But these sunny spells come with a price. Showers. It's an unstable atmosphere. Cold air aloft, milder air at the surface. That creates convection. You might be walking to the sandwich shop at lunchtime in brilliant sunshine, only to be caught in a heavy downpour 5 minutes later. The fog risk in the east should be lower on Monday than Sunday. A gentle breeze will help to churn up the atmosphere, better visibility for East Anglia and Lincolnshire. Still feeling chilly, mind you. But at least you will be able to see where you are going. Temperature-wise on Monday, we're re-looking at highs of 11 degrees again in the south. Bristol, Southampton, even parts of Kent could see those numbers. It remains remarkably mild for the time of year. Further north, slightly better than Sunday, perhaps reaching 7 or 8 degrees in Manchester and Leeds. Scotland remains the cold spot, highs of 5 to 6 degrees. If you are in Inverness or Aberdeen, you are not going to see much improvement. One thing to note for Monday evening. As the skies clear in the north, the temperature will drop sharply after sunset. If you are driving home late on Monday night in Scotland or Northern England, watch out for icy patches on untreated roads. The temperature could fall below freezing very quickly once the sun goes down. That is particularly true on rural routes, bridges, and elevated sections of motorway. The Met Office hasn't issued any ice warnings yet, but I do keep an eye on that. Now, let me talk about confidence levels in this forecast. For Sunday, I do say we re at about 4 out of 5. The pattern is well established, the models are in good agreement, the fog in the east, the rain in the west, that's locked in. For Monday, confidence drops slightly to about 3 out of 5. There is a bit more uncertainty about exactly where those showers will develop and how heavy they will be. The ECMWF model suggests they'll be more concentrated in the northwest. The GFS model spreads them more evenly across the country. The UKMO model sits somewhere in between. So there is a bit of model disagreement there. What does this mean practically? Well, if you're planning travel on Sunday, allow extra time if you are in the east. That fog will slow traffic. Motorways like the M11 and A14 could see congestion. If you are in the west, it's not the fog you need to worry about, it is the rain. Surface water on the roads, spray reducing visibility, take it steady. For Monday, the variability means you need to be prepared for anything. Pack an umbrella even if it's sunny when you leave the house. Those showers can come out of nowhere. If you are commuting into a city like Manchester or Birmingham, you might leave home in the dry and arrive at work soaked. That's just the nature of showery weather. Now, for those of you with longer memories, you might be thinking, we've seen this pattern before. And you did be right. This sort of east-west split is classic for mid-January. Back in January of 2010, we had a very similar setup. Cold, foggy conditions in the east, milder, wetter conditions in the west. It persisted for nearly a fortnight. I am not saying this will last that long, but it's worth noting that once these blocking patterns establish themselves, they can be quite stubborn. The difference between now and 2010 is the intensity. Back then, we had much colder air locked in over the continent. Temperatures in East Anglia were well below freezing during the day. We are not seeing that this time. The cold air is there, but it's not as extreme. So whilst it feels chilly in the east, we are not talking about the sort of cold that freezes pipes or causes major disruption. Let me address something I know some of you will be thinking. Is this pattern going to break down? When might we see something more settled? The honest answer is not in the next 5 to 7 days. The models are suggesting this split flow pattern persists through the middle of next week. Beyond that, there are hints that high pressure might build more strongly from the southwest, which could push the Atlantic systems away and give us something drier and perhaps a bit brighter. But that S-low confidence at this range, a lot can change. If you're in Scotland, you've been dealing with the worst of the weather recently. The wind, the rain, the cold, that continues through Monday. I know it's been a tough few weeks up there. The one bit of good news is that by Tuesday or Wednesday, the winds should ease a bit. Still cold, still showery, but not quite as blustery. For those in the south who've been enjoying the mild temperatures, don't to get too comfortable. Once this pattern does break down, there's a risk we could see something colder pushing in from the north. But that S speculative at this stage. For now, enjoy the relative mildness whilst it lasts. Let me give you some specific practical advice for the next 48 hours. If you are in the east, check your car lights for the fog. Make sure your fog lights are working. Allow extra time for any journeys. Keep your speed down. If visibility drops below 100 meters, you should be doing no more than 30 miles per hour. And for goodness sake, don't sit on someone's bumper. That fog can hide all sorts of hazards. If you are in the west, check your guttering. There's going to be a fair bit of water coming down. If your gutters are blocked with leaves from autumn, now is the time to clear them before you get overflow and damp patches inside. Also, if you have any outdoor drains that tend to block, give them a check. The last thing you want is standing water around your property. For everyone, despite the mild temperatures in the south, that damp air makes it feel colder than the numbers suggest. Layers are your friend this weekend. A waterproof outer layer is essential, one of those lightweight, packable rain jackets that you can stuff in a bag. You might not need it all day, but when that shower comes through, you'll be glad you have it. For those with elderly relatives or neighbours, particularly in Scotland and the north where it's coldest, just check in on them. Make sure their heating is working properly. Make sure they've got enough food in so they don't have to venture out in the worst of the weather. It's not extreme conditions, but it is miserable enough that vulnerable people might struggle. If you are a dog walker, and I know many of you are, early morning in the east is going to be tricky. That fog will make it difficult to see where your dog's gone if they rear off the lead. Maybe keep them on the lead until the fog lifts. In the west, you're going to get wet. There's no two ways about it. A good waterproof coat for you, and maybe rinse the dog off when you get home. They will be muddy. For cyclists, particularly in urban areas, the fog in the east is a real hazard. Cars want to see you as easily. Make sure your lights are on front and rear, wear something bright or reflective. And honestly, if the fog is really thick, consider alternative transport. It's not worth the risk. One last thing. I've been monitoring the long-range models, and there are some interesting signals for late January, early February. Nothing certain yet, but there are hints that we could see a more substantial cold spell developing. Some of the ensemble members on the ECMWF are showing the possibility of an easterly flow establishing. That's the sort of pattern that can bring snow, particularly to eastern areas. But we are talking 10 to 14 days away. A lot can change. I'll keep you updated as the picture becomes clearer. For now, the summary is this. Sunday is a day of east versus west. Foggy, grey and cold in the east. Milder, wetter and breezier in the west. If you want relative warmth, head south. If you want winter crispness, head north. Monday brings a shake-up. The fog lifts, but the rain spreads out. Expect a day of sunny intervals and scattered showers nationwide. It's a Mac and Wellies sort of day, rather than a heavy wool coat. This isn't the end of the world. It's January in Britain. This is what January looks like. We've seen far worse. Those of you who remember the winter of 62 to 63, you know what real cold looks like. This is mild by comparison, but it's still worth being prepared, still worth taking sensible precautions. Whatever your plans for the next couple of days, whether you are braving the elements for a hike in the peaks or simply curling up with a good book whilst the rain lashes the window pane, stay safe, stay dry where you can, and don't let the weather stop you from getting on with life. We re-British, we are used to this. That's the comprehensive outlook for Sunday the 18th and Monday the 19th of January 2026. I'll be back with another update midweek once we have a clearer picture of what is developing for the end of the month. Until then,